The conclave station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of light and metal. It was the largest structure ever built by living beings. Thousands of ships moved around it like tiny insects near a giant flower. Every year, the most powerful species in the galaxy came here to show their strength and make deals. This was the place where wars were prevented and alliances were formed. High Commander stood at the main observation window of the station. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. His people, had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species crawl out of their birth worlds and reach for the stars. Most of those species were now dust and forgotten memories. Watched as a massive ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. It was the vessel called World's End. The ship was ugly and brutal, covered in weapons and armored plates. There were a reptilian species who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. Their warlord commanded that terrible ship. "They are always the first to arrive," said a voice behind. "They are eager to show off their toys." Turned to see emissary floating nearby. Was not made of flesh and bone. She was pure energy, contained in a vaguely female shape that glowed with soft blue light. Her people, the collective, had evolved beyond physical bodies millions of years ago. "Let them have their moment," replied. "We both know that true power is not about having the biggest weapons." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "And yet, your ship, the Infinite Silence, is the largest dreadnought ever constructed." Allowed himself a small smile. Size is not the same as power, emissary, but it does help. Over the next several hours, more ships arrived. Each major species brought their flagship to display at the annual fleet exhibition. This was a tradition that went back 3,000 years. It was part military parade, part diplomatic meeting, and part warning to anyone who might think about starting trouble. The vessel hung in space like a weapon waiting to fire. They brought their living ship, a creature made of compressed stellar energy that hurt to look at directly. They revealed the Infinite Silence, a dreadnought so large it created its own gravity field. Smaller species brought their own vessels, each trying to impress the greater powers. Ambassador Han watched all of this from the human delegation's quarters on the station. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 20 years in the diplomatic service, and she had learned that patience was worth more than anger. "They barely acknowledge us," said Lieutenant. He stood beside her, his arms crossed over his chest. He was the tactical officer for Earth's flagship, and he did not like being treated as unimportant. "We've been in space for 200 years. We've proven ourselves in 3 major conflicts, and they still look at us like children." "Let them," said quietly. "Underestimation is a gift our enemies give us for free." The door opened, and Captain Park entered the room. She was in her 50s, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from years of command. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced death many times and won. "The eternal dawn will arrive in 6 hours," she announced. "Everything is ready." His expression changed. "Finally, after all these years of secrecy, the galaxy will see what we've built." Sat down and looked out the window at the gathered fleet. "What we woke up," she corrected him. "Never forget the difference." In the main hall of the station, the representatives of all species gathered for the opening ceremony. High Commander gave a speech about peace and cooperation. Warlord gave a speech about strength and honor. Emissary spoke of wisdom and the long view of history. When it was Earth's turn, Ambassador Han walked to the center of the stage. She could feel the eyes of 1,000 delegates on her. Most of them were curious. Some were dismissive. A few were openly hostile. "Earth thanks the conclave for this invitation," said, her voice clear and calm. "We are a young species, we know this. We have much to learn from our elders in the galactic community, but we also believe that we have something to offer, something new, something different." "Words," Warlord rumbled from his seat. His scales were dark green and his yellow eyes gleamed with amusement. Humans always have so many words, but where is your ship? Where is your power? Smiled, it was not a warm smile. Patience, warlord. Good things come to those who wait. The ceremony continued, but whispers spread through the crowd. Everyone knew that Earth had been building something in secret for decades. Rumors spoke of a project hidden in the asteroid belt, guarded by the entire Earth defense fleet. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a ship unlike any other. Most thought it was just propaganda from a species desperate to seem important. Hours passed. The exhibition began. They demonstrated their planet cracker weapon by destroying a small moon in a nearby system. They showed their shields absorbing enough firepower to level a continent. They converted an asteroid into pure energy and then back into solid matter. Then the sensors started screaming. Every ship in the fleet detected something approaching. The readings made no sense. The object was there and not there at the same time. It seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Energy signatures fluctuated wildly, going from 0 to infinite and back again. "What is that?" Warlord demanded, rising from his seat. High Commander stared at his display with ancient eyes that had seen many wonders. For the first time in centuries, he felt surprised. "I do not know," he admitted. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn as it approached the station. The ship hummed around her, alive in ways that no one fully understood. Its hull was made of a metal that did not exist in any known database. Its engines bent space in ways that violated several laws of physics. "Open a channel to the station," ordered. "Channel open, Captain," replied her communications officer. Straightened her uniform and spoke clearly. "Conclave Station, this is Captain Park of the Earth vessel Eternal Dawn. We are here for the fleet exhibition, requesting standard docking procedures." There was silence on the other end. In the main hall, 1,000 delegates stared at their screens in shock. The human ship had arrived, and it was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. High Commander finally found his voice. "Eternal Dawn, this is Conclave. Your request is granted. Please approach Docking Bay 7. As the strange human ship moved closer, felt something he had not experienced in a very long time. He felt uncertain. He felt curious. And deep in his ancient heart, he felt something that might have been fear. The humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The Eternal Dawn moved through space like a dream made solid. Every eye on the Conclave Station watched it approach. Every sensor tried to understand what it was seeing. Most of those sensors failed. Captain Park stood on the bridge and watched the station grow larger through the main. Around her, her crew worked in focused silence. They had trained for this moment for years. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew that everything would change after today. "Captain," said Lieutenant from his tactical station, "the vessel is attempting a deep scan of our hull." Nodded slowly, "Let them try." On the world's end, Warlord barked orders at his sensor operators. "I want to know everything about that ship, materials, power source, weapons, everything." "Warlord," his chief sensor operator replied, his voice shaking, "our systems cannot read the vessel properly. Every time we try to scan it, our equipment overloads." As if to prove his point, 3 sensor stations exploded in showers of sparks. Crew members jumped back, cursing in the harsh language. Slammed his fist against his command chair. "Impossible," he growled. "No ship can do that passively." But the Eternal Dawn had done exactly that. It was not even trying to jam their sensors. The ship's very nature made it impossible to scan properly. In the main observation hall, High Commander watched the human vessel dock with the station. Up close, it was even stranger than it had appeared from a distance. The hull seemed to move and flow like liquid metal, but it was clearly solid. Light bent strangely around it, creating shadows that pointed in wrong directions. Sometimes the ship seemed bigger than it was. Sometimes it seemed smaller. "This is wrong," said quietly. "This technology is not human. This technology is not anything I have seen in 10,000 years." Emissary floated beside him, her energy form flickering with unusual patterns. "I have seen things like this before," she said, her voice troubled. "In the ruins of dead civilizations, in the graves of species that existed before any of us were born." "The precursors?" asked, using the name that all species used for the ancient builders who had vanished long ago. "Perhaps, I cannot be certain, but the energy patterns are similar." The docking bay doors opened, and Captain Park walked out with her senior staff. Ambassador Han was beside her, along with Lieutenant and two other officers. Behind them came a young woman in a strange uniform that seemed to glow faintly. Her name was Song, and she walked with her eyes half closed, as if she was listening to music no one else could hear. High Commander stepped forward to greet them. Protocol demanded courtesy, even when he wanted to demand answers. "Welcome to Conclave Station, Captain Park," he said formally. "Your vessel is impressive." "Thank you, High Commander," replied. "The Eternal Dawn is our pride and joy." "How did you build it?" asked directly. He was too old for subtle games. "Humanity does not have the technology for something like this. No one does." Exchanged a look with her officers, then she smiled slightly. "We did not build it, High Commander, we found it." The words hung in the air. A crowd had gathered around them, representatives from dozens of species all straining to hear. "Found it," repeated. "In our asteroid belt," continued. 50 years ago, a mining ship discovered a structure hidden inside a large asteroid. The structure was very old, millions of years old, and inside it was a ship." "The Eternal Dawn," said softly. "It was sleeping," explained. "Dead, we thought at first, but when we brought our engineers and scientists to study it, something happened. The ship recognized us. It woke up." Warlord pushed through the crowd, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. "You expect us to believe this, that you found a magic ship that chose you?" "I do not care what you believe," Warlord said calmly. "I am telling you what happened." "Show us," said. "If this ship is truly ancient, it will have records, memories. Let us see them." Looked at Song. The young woman opened her eyes fully. They seemed too deep, as if they contained galaxies inside them. "The ship will allow it," said. Her voice was strange, like two voices speaking at once. "But not here, you must come aboard." High Commander hesitated. Boarding an unknown vessel was dangerous, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. "I will come," he said. "As will I," added. Snorted. "If the N are going, the will not be left behind." Captain Park led them through the docking tube and onto the Eternal Dawn. The moment they stepped aboard, all three alien representatives stopped moving. They could feel something. The ship was alive. Not like a creature of flesh and blood, but something different. It was aware of them. It was watching them. "What is this feeling?" whispered. For once, the fierce warlord sounded unsure. "The ship knows you are here," explained. "It is deciding if you are worthy." "Worthy of what?" asked. "Of seeing the truth." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch and compress in strange ways. The walls were covered in symbols that looked almost like writing, but no translator could read them. Sometimes the symbols glowed. Sometimes they moved. Finally, they reached the heart of the ship. It was a chamber filled with soft light. In the center was a column of pure energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is the core," said. She walked toward the column and placed her hands on it. The light grew brighter. "I am what you might call a navigator. I am bonded with the ship. It speaks through me." The light expanded, and suddenly they were no longer on the ship. They were floating in space, watching a scene from long ago. A beautiful world hung before them, covered in cities of crystal and light. Ships like the Eternal Dawn filled the sky, hundreds of them. "The builders," said, her voice echoing. "This is what they called themselves. They lived and grew and explored. They thought they would last forever. The vision changed. The beautiful world was burning. The crystal cities crumbled. The ships fought against something dark and terrible, a swarm of shadows that consumed everything it touched. The silence came, continued. It came from outside the galaxy. It came from the void between stars. It consumed everything. The builders fought, they lost. The last scene showed a single ship flying away from the dying world. It was the eternal dawn. It flew and flew until it found a small yellow star with a blue planet covered in water. The ship came to Earth, said. It hid. It slept. It waited for a species that might have a chance to succeed where the builders failed. The vision ended. They were back in the chamber, all of them breathing hard. Why us? Asked. Why did it choose humans? Smiled sadly. Because you are not like the builders. You are not like any species the ship has ever seen. You are small and weak and short-lived. But you never stop fighting. You never stop hopping. And you never ever fight alone. She looked at each of them in turn. That is why the builders lost. They stood alone against the darkness. They were too proud to ask for help. Humanity is not proud. Humanity builds bridges. Humanity makes friends. The weight of her words filled the chamber. High Commander, who had lived for 10,000 years, felt tears in his ancient eyes. The silence, he said slowly, it is still out there. It is coming, replied. And this time we must all stand together, or we will all fall alone. The morning after the revelation, the conclave station was filled with tension. Word had spread about what the alien representatives had seen aboard the Eternal Dawn. Some believed it. Some called it a trick. Some refused to speak of it at all. The fleet exhibition continued because it had to. Tradition was strong among the elder species. They had done this for 3,000 years, and they would not stop now, not even with the shadow of ancient doom hanging over them. High Commander called for the demonstration phase to begin. Each flagship would show what it could do. This was the heart of the exhibition, the moment when every species proved its worth through displays of power. The went first. Warlord stood on the bridge of World's End with his arms crossed over his massive chest. His ship moved into position near a dead moon that had been brought to this system specifically for such demonstrations. All weapons ready, his tactical officer reported. Fire ordered. World's End unleashed everything it had. Beams of pure destruction lanced out from 100 weapon ports. Missiles the size of buildings streaked toward the target. The dead moon cracked like an egg. Then it split in half. Then it exploded into a billion pieces that scattered across space. In the observation hall, delegates applauded politely. They were always impressive in their brutality. The went next. The infinite silence moved into position. It did not fire weapons. Instead, it simply sat there while the other ships were invited to attack. Grinned and ordered another barrage. The weapons that had destroyed a moon slammed into the shields. The light was so bright that everyone had to look away. When they could see again, the infinite silence floated unchanged. Not a scratch, not a ripple. Our shields can absorb any attack, announced calmly. Nothing in this galaxy can harm us. The went third. Emissary's living ship approached an asteroid the size of a city. The ship glowed brighter and brighter. Then it released a wave of pure energy that washed over the asteroid. The rock simply stopped existing. It was converted directly into energy, which the ship absorbed and stored. Matter and energy are the same, explained through the communication system. We control both. Now it was Earth's turn. Captain Park walked onto the observation deck where the other representatives were watching. Lieutenant and Ambassador hand-flanked her. Behind them came Chief Engineer and Doctor. "What will you show us, human?" asked with a sneer. "After seeing a precursor vision, what tricks do you have left?" Smiled. "I have a proposal, Warlord. Instead of shooting at a rock, I want to try something different." "What do you mean?" "I want every flagship here to fire on the Eternal Dawn. All of you. At the same time, silence fell over the observation deck, stared at her with ancient eyes. "You are asking us to attack your ship?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because seeing is believing," replied. "You saw visions aboard my ship. You heard stories, but stories can be lies. Visions can be tricks. The only way you will truly understand what the eternal dawn can do is if you try to destroy it." Laughed, it was a harsh barking sound. "I accept. Finally, we will see what your little ship is really made of." Hesitated, "This seems unwise." "It is necessary," said firmly. "When the silence comes, we will need to trust each other completely. That trust starts here." Floated forward. "I will participate, but I want it noted that I do this reluctantly." The three flagships moved into position. The eternal dawn floated at the center of their formation. It looked small compared to the massive dreadnought and the brutal destroyer. Even the living ship seemed larger and more threatening. On the bridge of the eternal dawn, Lieutenant checked his displays nervously. "Captain, are you sure about this? Those three ships together have enough firepower to crack a planet." "I am sure," replied. "Is the ship ready?" Song sat in a special chair at the center of the bridge. Cables of light connected her to the ship systems. Her eyes glowed with soft blue light. "The ship is ready, Captain. It knows what to do." "Then let us begin." Opened a channel to the other ships. "You may fire when ready." For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to scream. World's End unleashed every weapon in its arsenal. The infinite silence fired beams of compressed gravity that could tear holes in reality. The ship released a wave of stellar energy hot enough to melt anything. The combined firepower was more than enough to destroy a small moon. It was probably enough to damage a planet. It all raced toward the eternal dawn. And then something impossible happened. The eternal dawn was simply not there when the weapons arrived. It did not move. It did not dodge. One moment it was in the path of destruction. The next moment it was somewhere else, as if it had never been in danger at all. The weapons continued forward, hitting nothing. They dissipated harmlessly into empty space. "What?" roared. "Where did it go?" On sensor screens across the fleet, the eternal dawn appeared again. But it did not appear where it had been. It appeared behind all three flagships at the same time. Somehow, impossibly, it was in three places at once. "That is not possible," whispered. Doctor smiled from his position on the bridge. "The ship exists slightly out of phase with normal space-time," he explained over the open channel. "Your weapons pass through where it was, but the ship itself is always somewhere else. It is like trying to grab smoke." The three versions of the eternal dawn merged back into one, sitting peacefully in space as if nothing had happened. Its weapons were armed and glowing, pointed directly at the bridges of all three flagships. "We could have fired back," Captain Park said calmly. "We chose not to. This was a demonstration, not an attack, but I want you to understand something." She stood up from her command chair and looked directly at the visual sensors that she knew were capturing her image. "The eternal dawn is not a weapon of war. It is a weapon of survival. The builders created it to save their people. They failed because they would not ask for help. We will not make that mistake." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We came here to make friends, not enemies. Please do not make us reconsider." The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon could create. In the observation hall, Warlord slowly sat down. His scales had gone pale. For the first time in his long life, he had seen something that truly frightened him. Not because it was powerful, but because he could not understand it. High Commander felt very old. He had seen many things in 10,000 years. He had seen empires fall and species die. He had believed that nothing could surprise him anymore. He had been wrong. Emissary's energy form flickered rapidly. She was communicating with others of her kind across vast distances. They were all processing what they had seen. They were all coming to the same conclusion. Humanity was not what they had thought. Humanity was something new. And if the ancient enemy was truly coming, humanity might be the only hope any of them had. The fleet exhibition was over. Everything that came next would be different. The balance of power had shifted, not through force, but through a simple truth. Sometimes the youngest species in the room has the most important lesson to teach. 3 days passed after the demonstration. The atmosphere on Conclave Station had changed completely. Species that had ignored humanity now sought meetings with their diplomats. Leaders who had laughed at Earth's small fleet now studied reports about the eternal dawn with worried eyes. High Commander requested a private meeting with Captain Park. They met in his personal chambers, a room filled with artifacts from 10,000 years of history. Ancient weapons hung on the walls beside diplomatic treaties and maps of forgotten empires. I could not speak freely before, said. He moved slowly, his silver skin seeming duller than before. There were too many ears listening, too many agendas. Sat across from him, her hands folded in her lap. What could you not tell us? The truth about why we gather here every year. Picked up a small crystal from his desk. Inside it, something dark swirled like living shadow. This is a piece of the silence. We found it on the edge of our territory 2,000 years ago. Leaned forward. You have known about them for that long. We have feared them for that long, corrected. We did not know what they were. We only knew that something was coming, something from beyond the galaxy, something that consumed everything it touched. He set the crystal down carefully. The fleet exhibition is not really about showing power to each other. It is about preparing for war. Each year we measure our strength. Each year we make plans. Each year we hope that when the silence finally comes, we will be ready. But you are not ready, said quietly. No, we are not, sighed heavily. We have studied the builders. We have found their ruins on 100 worlds. They were greater than all of us combined, Captain. Their ships made ours look like toys. Their weapons made ours look like sticks and stones. And they still lost. Ambassador Han entered the room. She had been listening from the doorway. Then what hope do we have? That is what I have been asking myself for 2,000 years. Looked at them both with ancient, tired eyes. And then your ship appeared, and everything changed. Lieutenant arrived next, followed by Doctor and Chief Engineer. Soon the small room was filled with humans and one very old alien. Song has been working with the ship's memory systems, Doctor reported. We have found something important. The builders left more than just the ship, added. They left a message, a warning. Nodded, show us. They activated a portable holographic projector. The image that appeared was of a builder, tall and elegant, with features that were almost human but not quite. The being spoke in a language that no one understood, but the eternal dawn translated. If you are seeing this message, then we have failed. The silence has taken everything. Our worlds, our people, our hope, but you have found our last ship. You have woken it. That means there is still a chance. The builder's image flickered with age. Some parts of the recording were damaged. The silence cannot be defeated by weapons alone. We tried. We built the greatest fleet in the history of the galaxy. We fired enough energy to destroy stars. It was not enough. The silence adapts. The silence learns. The silence grows stronger from everything we threw at it. The image stabilized again. But we found a weakness. The silence is one mind, one will, one hunger. It cannot understand cooperation between different species. It cannot predict the actions of beings who work together instead of alone. That is why it consumed us. We were one species thinking with one mind. We were easy to predict, easy to defeat. The builder looked directly out of the recording as if staring at them across millions of years. You who find this ship must be different. You must unite with others. Not one species, but many. Not one fleet, but all fleets together. The silence will not expect this. The silence will not understand it. and in that confusion you will find your victory." The message ended. Silence filled the room. "The builders were alone," said slowly. "That was their great mistake." "Yes," agreed. "And we have been making the same mistake. Every species here has been preparing to face the silence alone, competing with each other, hiding technology, building separate fleets." "You are suggesting a true alliance," said. "Not just cooperation but unity." "I am suggesting survival," replied. "We stand together or we fall alone." The door opened again. Warlord entered, followed by emissary. They had been invited to hear the builder's message. They had been watching from outside. The "do not beg for help," growled, but his voice lacked its usual anger. He had seen the vision aboard the Eternal Dawn. He had seen what the silence could do. "This is not about begging," Ambassador Han said calmly. "This is about being smart enough to recognize that none of us can win alone." "Your ship," said Tu, "it has abilities we do not understand. Can it truly make a difference?" "The ship has technology from the builders," explained. "It can extend its phase-shifting field to other vessels. It can share its abilities, but it requires something the builders never had." "What?" Song stepped forward. She had been standing in the corner, silent until now. "Trust," she said simply. "The ship can protect other vessels, but only if they lower their shields, only if they let the ship into their systems, only if they believe that we will not use that access against them." Snorted, "You expect us to make ourselves vulnerable to you?" "Yes," replied. "Just as we made ourselves vulnerable to you during the demonstration. We let you fire everything you had at us. We trusted that it was only a test. Now we are asking you to trust us in return." The alien leaders exchanged glances. What the humans were asking was almost unthinkable: to share control of their precious ships, to let an alien vessel into their most protected systems, to make themselves completely helpless. But the alternative was extinction. High Commander stood up slowly. "They have led this region of the galaxy for 10,000 years. We have always believed that our wisdom and our strength would be enough. We were wrong." He walked toward Captain Park and extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. "I speak for the Empire. We will join your alliance. We will trust your ship. We will stand with humanity against the darkness." His energy form glowed brighter. "The collective agrees. We have existed for millions of years. We would like to exist for millions more. We will join." Everyone looked at. The warlord stood with his fists clenched, his yellow eyes burning with conflicting emotions: pride and fear, anger and hope. "If we do this," he said finally, "and the humans betray us, I will personally tear their planet apart." "Fair enough," replied with a slight smile. Nodded once sharply. Join the alliance, but remember my words, human, remember them well." Ambassador Han stepped forward. "Then it is decided. For the first time in galactic history, the major powers will work together as one. Let this be the beginning of something new, something that will last long after the silence is defeated." Captain Park looked around the room at the gathered leaders. And human, different in every way, united by fear and hope and the desperate need to survive. "The builders were alone," she said. "We are not, and that will make all the difference." Little did they know that their alliance would be tested sooner than anyone expected. The silence was already on its way, and it was closer than they knew. The warning came without notice. Every sensor in the system screamed at the same moment. Every ship in the fleet detected something massive emerging at the edge of the solar system. Captain Park was on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn when the alarm started. She had been reviewing Alliance protocols with Lieutenant when the universe suddenly reminded them that they were out of time. "Report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the cold fear spreading through her chest. Doctor stared at his screens with wide eyes. "It is big, Captain, bigger than anything we have ever seen. The readings match the records from the builders. It is the silence. A scout swarm. Just a scout, asked. Just a scout. The main force is somewhere behind it. This is only the first taste. Opened a channel to all Allied ships. All vessels, this is Captain Park. The enemy has arrived. Execute Formation Alpha. Prepare to engage. The response was immediate. Despite the newness of their alliance, the alien fleets moved with purpose. The infinite silence took point, its massive shields ready to absorb the first attacks. World's End positioned itself for maximum firepower. The living ship spread wide, ready to provide energy support. The eternal dawn floated at the center of them all. They could see it now. The scout swarm was a dark mass against the stars, blocking out light like a living shadow. It was not a single ship but millions of them, moving together like a cloud of hungry insects. Each individual piece was small, but together they formed something larger than any moon. All ships hold position, High Commander ordered over the fleet channel. Let them come to us. We have the advantage of defense. The swarm moved closer. It was fast, faster than anything that big should be able to move. Within minutes it was close enough to engage. The battle began. Weapons lit up the darkness. Beams of destruction carved through the front of the swarm, destroying thousands of the small shadow creatures instantly. But for every 1,000 that died, 10,000 more took their place. Shields held against the first wave of attacks. The creatures threw themselves against the infinite silence like waves against a cliff. For a moment, it seemed like the shields would hold forever. Then they started to fail. Shield power dropping, reported, his voice strained. The creatures are not just attacking, they are draining our energy, absorbing it. They tried to provide support, pouring stellar energy into the shields, but the swarm adapted. It learned. It started absorbing that energy too. They are learning our patterns, reported. Every attack we use becomes less effective. Every defense we raise becomes easier for them to break. On the eternal dawn, Song gripped the arms of her command chair. The ship was speaking to her, showing her the battle from every angle. She could feel the fear of the Allied crews. She could sense the growing confidence of the swarm. "Captain," she said, "we need to act now. If we wait any longer, the other ships will be destroyed." Nodded, "All ships, this is Captain Park. Lower your shields and open your systems to the eternal dawn. Do it now." For a horrible moment, nothing happened. The request was insane. In the middle of battle, they were asking ships to make themselves completely vulnerable. Then's voice came over the channel. "Shields lowering, systems opening. We trust you, Captain Park. Do not make us regret it." Roared something in the language that sounded like a curse and a prayer combined. "Systems open. If we die fighting." Was already complying. They had less to fear from exposure, but the trust they were showing was just as real. Song closed her eyes and reached out through the ship. She felt the eternal dawn extend itself, spreading its phase-shifting field across the entire Allied fleet. It was like trying to hold water in her hands, but she held on with everything she had. "Now," she whispered, "we fight as one." The Allied fleet changed. Ships that had been solid became ghostly. Attacks from the swarm passed through them like shadows through mist. The creatures that had been winning moments ago suddenly found themselves fighting smoke. "It is working," shouted. "The swarm cannot touch us." But knew the truth. The phase shift protected them, but it also made it impossible to fight back. They were safe, but they were helpless. "We need to attack," she told. "The ship can do something. It can shift our weapons into normal space for a moment, long enough to fire, but it will require perfect coordination." Understood immediately. She opened the fleet channel again. "All vessels, prepare to fire on my command. The eternal dawn will handle the timing. You just need to pull the trigger when I say." Ambassador Han was on the station, watching the battle from the observation deck. She had stayed behind to coordinate communications, but now she had a more important job. She started broadcasting to every species in the fleet, human and alien alike. "Listen to me," she said. "We are different species. We have different histories, different cultures, different ways of seeing the universe. But right now, none of that matters. Right now, we are all just people fighting to survive. Follow Captain Park. Trust the eternal dawn. Trust each other." The swarm pressed its attack, confused by enemies it could not touch. The shadow creatures swirled and reformed, trying to adapt to this new challenge. But for the first time, they were facing something they could not understand. Multiple species working as one, different minds thinking together. "Now," Song whispered, "now." The eternal dawn shifted the fleet back into normal space for exactly 1 second. In that second, every weapon from every ship fired at the same point in the center of the swarm. Gravity beams, destruction cannons, stellar energy, human precision weapons. All of it hit the same spot at the same moment. The center of the swarm exploded, not just a small part but the whole thing. The chain reaction spread outward like fire through dry grass. Shadow creatures died by the millions. In 3 seconds it was over. Where the scout swarm had been, there was only empty space and fatting echoes. The fleet hung in silence. Then the cheering started. On every ship, in every language, voices rose in celebration. They had won. For the first time in recorded history, a force of the silence had been defeated. Captain Park sank back into her chair. Her hands were shaking. She looked at Song, who was crying from exhaustion and relief. "We did it," said his voice cracking. "We actually did it." "This was only a scout," Doctor reminded them. "The main force is still out there." "Then we will beat them too," said firmly. "We know how now. We know what we can do when we work together." High Commander's voice came over the channel. He sounded different than before. The weight of 10,000 years seemed lighter somehow. "I have seen many things in my long life," he said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen species born and die. I thought I had seen everything the universe could offer. Then Earth's flagship appeared. And now I have seen something I never believed possible. I have seen hope." Warlord laughed, but it was not a cruel laugh. "We'll write songs about this day, songs about the small pink creatures who taught us how to fight." Energy form pulsed with warm light. Today the galaxy changed. Today we became something new, something better. Ambassador Han watched from the station as the fleet regrouped. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, the secrets, the fears, the desperate hope that had made them take a chance on unity. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "The real fight is still ahead." But for now, in this moment, they had won. The youngest species in the galaxy had reminded the oldest ones of a simple truth. None of them had to face the darkness alone. The eternal dawn floated peacefully among its allies. No longer a mystery, but a symbol of something greater than any single species could achieve. They had thought they had seen it all. They had been wrong. And the universe was better for it.